Life gives us moments when we have the opportunity to make a choice. And what we choose has the potential to change our lives forever. Join us now for another inspired episode of The Breakthrough. And now, please welcome the creator and host of the show, Jessica Dugas.
My first guest today is a 21-year-old singer-songwriter from the small town that I currently live in here in Alabama. It's very rare that we've had someone local to me on the show. I know her family and I've seen her out performing places around town, but I didn't realize how fast and natural her journey through music has been until I got to know her and her music. I'm super excited to welcome her as our first inspirational entertainer for season 4 of The Breakthrough Show. Please welcome Abby Miracle to the show. Welcome. Hi. I'm so excited that you're here. You have like the perfect name for the entertainment industry, Abby Miracle. It's like, that is your given name, right?
Oh yeah, that's my last name by birth. It's my dad's name, come from my dad's side of the family. So
it's like it was predestined for there to be some kind of entertainer in the family because the name's perfect for that, I think.
Right, and my first initial is A, so I get to be A Miracle.
Oh my gosh. That's wild. That's awesome. You know, there's so many people who are entertainers that have to go and choose their name. You were just given the right one, right?
It's just like almost like I couldn't say no. It's like you gotta go into it now.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've been been involved in music and interested in music since you were how old?
I always liked music when I listened to it, like with my dad or my mom on the radio in the car going places. But when I was 6 years old, I was in a children's class at church, and they had this thing at First Baptist in Opelika that they used to do at Christmas called the Living Christmas Tree. Mm-hmm. And what it was is they have this like giant Christmas tree in the sanctuary. They don't do it anymore because they remodeled and it doesn't fit anymore in the sanctuary because the ceiling's lower or something. But it was this giant Christmas tree, and they'd have people stand on every layer of it, and then they'd sing the songs from the tree. So it was kind of like I don't know if they were supposed to be ornaments or lights or whatever, but they had a little girl or a little boy, I guess just a kid. I think it's always been a little girl, but they had a young child sing a song called Happy Birthday Jesus every year.
Yes.
And so they came to my class. I can't really remember if it was a music class. Each kid individually and had them sing, and they decided that they liked me the best, which is crazy to think about, but they chose me to do it, and my parents said that they would be okay with me doing it. So I sang this song with these people in this choir on the Living Christmas Tree, and it was several performances throughout December. It was like several services. So, and First Baptist is a fairly big church. I think they're bigger than they were back then, but yeah. I was 6 years old, so I mean that was quite some time ago. But I think it was at least 1,000 people every night. Wow. And I still don't know how at 6 years old I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna do this. It's not a big deal. Because I was really quiet as a child, honestly. Like, I mean, I still had the same personality that I have, but I wasn't like, with every new person I met, I was like, I'm just going to be completely myself, like, immediately. I kind of had to, like, get used to a person. So, I don't know, but somehow I sang that song several times in front of a few people, and then back a few years later in second grade, they asked me to do it again for the Christmas Eve service, and it just kind of stuck, I guess, because I continued doing choir stuff, and I eventually recorded some cover albums later, and then started getting into songwriting. So
I love that. Well, and what blows my mind is that you didn't pick up an actual guitar until 2014. And then made an album in 2016. Like that's a somebody push the fast forward button there.
Well, I had guitars on and off pretty much through my childhood. I think the first one I got is one of those like first act like things from like Target or something. It's like $20.
One that never stays tuned.
Right, and I didn't know how to tune it either. But something happened and it broke, and so I didn't have a guitar for a while, and then I did have one, and I was bored with it. And then I decided I wanted to play ukulele in 2014, and I talked to my mom about it, and she was like, yeah, if you'll actually play it, then we should get it, because it's not an expensive instrument and it seems to be easy to learn. So I got it, and I started teaching myself, and then I started taking lessons. So that kind of helped me fast forward on that one. And then the guy that ended up being my guitar teacher, Paul Gross, he talked to me at a music camp, and he was like, I think it's time for you to step up to 6 strings. I was like, well, I do have a guitar already. He's like, yeah, you need to just start taking some guitar lessons with me. And so I did. And I think the knowledge of already knowing the basic of playing a string instrument, like this, how to strum and how to like form some basic chords that were easy to carry over to guitar, because some of them are pretty similar. I think that kind of helped me go ahead and be ready to make an album after that.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much easier. I mean, I know going through different instruments myself, once I learned piano, it was so much easier to pick up guitar and pick up clarinet and pick up these other things that I wanted to try to play, because while the notes change depending on what are the music notes on the page change depending on what instrument you're playing, it's still that knowledge is the same. And so I think it helps quite a bit.
Yeah, everybody I know that plays piano, my brother plays piano, but everybody I know that plays it says they can visualize the notes on every other instrument, like the guitar or the ukulele. They're like, I know where all the notes are, I just don't know how to make chords.
And it's like, rougher on your fingers. It's a lot rougher on your fingers. And I remember when I got my first callus, and I was like, I don't know if this is for me.
Yeah, it's rough when the calluses are forming, because your fingers sting all the time, and you're just like, but once you get them pretty strong, then it doesn't usually hurt too bad, unless you play for 4 hours, which I'm guilty of doing for 2 days. I'm like, why do my hands hurt?
Yeah. So who are some of your musical influences? Because I'll tell you, when I listened to you, the first vibe that I got was Lisa Loeb and this is going back to my 90s period of time.
Right.
But Lisa Loeb was one of my favorite. The way that she could just tell a story, and you just believe every word she says. It doesn't matter what she's singing about, you just believe it. And that's the vibe I got from you. But who are some of your influences in music?
Well, definitely Dave Potts used to be my songwriting instructor. We haven't done lessons in a while, but I still take advice from him when I can. He's lived here since 98 or 97, I think. And he's been doing shows here since he moved here. So I grew up going to his shows. So he was always a pretty big influence on songwriting and performing for me as a kid, because I just thought it was so cool that he wrote all these stories into songs and then got to perform them for his group of friends and some people he didn't even know. But also, I do like artists like 21 Pilots, which is not really similar to what I do, but I find the way they came up from nothing pretty inspiring, and I like their music, of course, as well. And I really like a lot of singer-songwriters, so I just kind of go into that genre and find songs that I like, and then I'll dig deep into an artist. So I have new favorite artists every week or so.
Yeah. It's always sort of fun to me to go back and discover someone that I didn't know from years ago, that have a similar style to me, or just, that I love the singer-songwriter thing where, like I said, it's just, they bring you in to what they're singing, and it's just so believable and it's so real. And a lot of times that right song comes along that makes us feel like we're not alone, and that we have someone else in the world that's going through what we did at somewhere in time, and I think that's magical. It's magical.
Absolutely. I really love story songs that like paint a picture and tell like a specific story, and you can close your eyes and really see it like you're there. That's one of my favorite things about songwriting, is that you can either make something vague that you can just enjoy, or you can make something that's very specific that you can visualize in your head.
Right, right. Absolutely. Well, I can't wait for you to perform for us today. So you're going to do a song for us called Peace of Mind. Tell us a little bit about that song and how and what that means to you.
Well, Peace of Mind is really interesting. I actually had no intention of writing anything like it when I wrote it. I was going into a songwriting lesson with Dave, and it was the 5th of July in 2016. So I don't remember if it was raining the day before, but it was just a very peaceful, non-stormy rain.
Mm.
And I had absolutely no ideas for anything to write, but I was there to write songs. So um, Dave said, well, why don't we sit out here on the porch and watch the rain, and you just describe it to me. Just picture of what around you. And that's how this song kind of came to be. I wrote the entire thing in that hour lesson, and then I went home and recorded it and released it all within less than 24 hours. So I kind of call it my Guinness record song, because I had no intention of making it, but it just came to be in 24 hours.
Mm.
But
I think that's how you know that it was supposed to be, you know, as much as we feel like maybe this is unnatural, I didn't plan on this, that when something is just completely flows out of us in that way, we know, okay, well, there was a bigger reason for this one.
Right. I would say it is a very peaceful song. It's really just, when you listen to the recording, it has rain in the background. But it's really just a kind of sit down and relax at the end of the day song, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love it. And I'm excited for you to share that with us today. So here to perform her song, Peace of Mind, for us, everybody, here's Abby Miracle.
I am watching as the raindrops fall. They are rolling, cooling down the sidewalk. Sometimes rain can be a bad thing, but today is not like other times. Usually a storm will come and leave me locked up inside. But today, this rain is giving me peace of mind. Thunder will not roll, lightning will not crash. Storms like that go on forever, but summer rain won't last. I'm peaceful as the rain slows down. Gently falling, forming puddles on the ground. Normally I wouldn't be outside in this, but today is not like other times. Usually when storms come, I like to stay inside. But today, this rain is giving me peace of mind. Thunder will not roll, lightning will not crash. Storms like that go on forever, but summer rain won't last. As the rain stops falling on the ground, I wonder when it will come back around. Wind no longer blows, clouds have storms usually go on forever, but this summer rain didn't last.
Awesome. Yay. I just love that. It's so, it's like I take a deep breath, and it reminds me of like sort of, some people, the rain and the storms can bring a lot of anxiety, and so you can use that as a metaphor. For me, as a metaphor for like the things that come into our lives, but we can choose to find the peace there and take a deep breath, and I just love it. I love that song so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we're going to will you come back and do another song for us at the end?
Sure.
Awesome. Well, we'll be right back in just a moment with our special guest today, Sally Lushin.
Hey, thanks for watching or listening to this episode of The Breakthrough Show. This spot you're listening to right here was made just for you. We are currently looking for sponsors and friends of the show, and it's super easy to ask for more information. Simply send an email saying more sponsor info to business@thebreakthroughshow.com or click the link in our show notes to send a message to our Facebook page. We can't wait to partner with you. And now back to The Breakthrough Show.
Welcome back to The Breakthrough Show. My special guest today is a speaker, author, and sexual assault advocate helping lift up survivors. Over the last 3 decades, she has learned to go through life with forgiveness. I know that's something that so many of us are working on. Everyone, please welcome my new friend, Sally Lushin, to the show. Sally, thank you so much for being here with me.
You're welcome.
I'm so excited to finally talk to you, because I say this often when people come on. We have this initial call to get to know each other, and then it's just like just waiting for that day, right?
And I'm going to correct you because my name is Lushin.
Lushin, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm not always right. Listen, I have been called everything, and including, you know what bugs me is, so my name is Jessica, and people call me Jennifer all the time.
Oh, really?
Because that's similar.
I guess.
So I'm glad we got that. I'm glad we got that out of the way, and thank you so much for letting me know about that. So I would love for you to start us off and tell us something that's bringing you joy in your life right now.
Well, right now I have 4 grandchildren, and as they grow and they start calling me Nana, I'm telling you, I can't even describe how my insides just melt, because I find this the most amazing time in my life, is to be able to actually have my grandchildren and enjoy them the way that I get to. So that brings me the most joy.
I love it. And I think it's so fun to have children around you when you might be going through a hard time. They really can lift you up and have a very unique outlook, and bring us back to like, would I have reacted this way if I was a child, and because we complicate things as adults sometimes, right?
We do.
We do, for sure. So I'm really excited to talk to you today about your journey. And I know that this is going to be a topic that is going to be difficult for some people to go there because of experiences that we've had in our lives. So I just want to let everybody know, as we have this conversation, that you are loved and you are supported, and that you are not alone in the things that you've gone through. And to be sure that if anything comes up during this episode that has you thinking about different things, to be sure to reach out to somebody. You can reach out to us here at the show, and you can also reach out to a friend, a loved one, and just don't keep things inside. Talk about how you're feeling. And so I just want to put that out there before we get started with our conversation today. So Sally, will you take us back to the period of time in your life when you had something pretty significant happen to you?
Okay. I actually, I was married in 1980. We started having a family. And in 1987, we actually moved back to Indianapolis, and we decided, I had a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old. And we decided we were going to buy a property downtown that could be renovated, and we were going to work on this, and this was going to be our family home. And we realized that we couldn't actually live in it for almost a year, and we had to work on the renovations, and I would never do that again. I think once is enough for me. But anyway, we ended up moving into a condo because my husband was a Indianapolis police officer, and so we got to move into a condo in exchange for him doing security for their condos. And so that's where we were living. We had actually just moved into that place. And on October 28th, 1987, regular day, normal day, came home from work. Kids were in bed. I followed them not soon after that. And so we were asleep, and my husband was actually at work. And sometime in the middle of the night, a man broke into our home, and I was beaten and raped. At that time, I was almost 5 months pregnant for my youngest son. And once that happened to me, then my life journey began in a different way that I had no idea. How to go through it, how to get through it. So I like anybody, I actually reported it. They took a rape kit, took evidence, they searched for him. And then that was just it. It just kind of died out with that. He was never caught. But then I became, the very confident, brave person that I had been. I completely changed overnight.
I'd love to ask you really quickly. So we see a lot of shows like SVU and movies about this sort of thing. Do you find your experience similar to things that we see on TV, and because I know a lot of times that the people that are victims in these situations, they have, like, it's a blur. Do you remember like details about that? And you don't have to share those with us, but do you ever find yourself like remembering very specific things, or is it blurry to you?
Both. I do remember very specific things. There's also a whole lot of time that I've learned that what I need to do is, instead of going back and rehashing and reliving the whole entire thing, that I can talk to my family who's there. They went through it with me, and have them tell me little highlights or little things that I have questions about. And so that's what's been very helpful for me, to not have to go and relive the whole entire situation, but to be able to just find out, this or that without having to go too deep.
Right. So you said that this whole experience, I mean, I think anybody listening to this story would say, of course, you would come out of this a different person. But tell us a little bit about what made you different? How was your personality before, and sort of how did that shift right after the incident that happened?
Oh, sure. I was very, very open, very talkative, would have no problem meeting a stranger, going to the mall, just any kind of things like that. With my children, I didn't have fears. I didn't have fears that were brought on to me that night. And that has a lot to do with the fact that, it's almost like when something like that happens to you, your brain just goes into an area that it's just trying to save you. It's trying to save you from what you're experiencing. And so over the years, between, talking to other people and then just remembering it on my own, I've been able to do that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I like I said, I think so many people will watch this and say, well, of course things change after something like that. And I think sometimes we hold ourselves to a higher standard of saying, I should be farther along. I should be, and
Right.
you know, making expectations for ourselves. Was that the same with you as well?
It was. And in fact, when I learned about fight, flight, and freeze, which I think a lot of us are familiar with,
Right.
they don't really talk about freeze, which is what I did. And so to me, I never even wanted to bring it up to anybody because I felt like I know this sounds crazy, but I felt like I had gotten raped wrong because everybody else either hit back or they ran away. And that's not what I did. So for a long time, I kept thinking, you know, a lot of women blame themselves for whatever situation they were in. And I didn't have to do that because I was asleep in my own bed, you know. And so for me, it was like, but why did I freeze like a deer, like a rabbit, you know, why did I do that? And then the more that I've learned about how my brain responds and how I really have no control over that, then it helped me to understand that, you know, I was fine. I could let all that go from my mind because it didn't need to be there in the first place.
Right. I think you're so right that we put, you know, we blame ourselves when we go through things of this magnitude, even smaller things. We think, well, I should have done it. Why didn't I do that? Why I should have done it this way? And then we, a lot of times as we're going along on our journey, you know, we're comparing ourselves to other people. Well, they fought back, and why didn't I fought back? Or they told and I
Right.
didn't tell, kind of thing. In my experience, I was 4 years old when I was abused, so I didn't know. I spent a lot of time blaming myself and being like, why didn't you tell somebody? Why didn't you say something then? Why are you just now saying something at 16 years old and now nobody believes you, kind of thing. And it really does take so much work to stop placing blame on yourself for doing the best you could in them. Isn't that funny to
Right.
think,
It is.
how are we blaming ourselves for doing the best we knew how to do in that moment?
You know, I can't explain it. It's just something that we do,
Right.
you know, and just like being able to talk about it, I didn't talk about it for over 25 years, you know, and there was no reason to talk about it. You know, it happened, it was over, so now I don't need to talk about it.
Right.
And as the years went by, I realized that I was only hurting myself by staying silent, you know, because while silence protects the perpetrator, it absolutely makes the victim feel like they have no power, they have no control.
So how has it looked for you over the last several years, many years, since this happened, to not get over it, but to get through it? Like, what does your process look like as you've gone through time?
Well, probably the first thing that I did was completely blocked it out. I mean, I was having a baby, you know, a few months
Right.
later. So after I did that, then I had so much anger toward my husband because I felt like he should have been there for me as a man, as my husband, as a police officer.
Right.
And I carried that kind of anger with me through many, many years. And I did when I have 3 boys, and when they each turned 18, I did tell them my story, and then I didn't want to talk about it anymore. You know, I felt like if I could just not talk about it, it would just go away, you know?
Right.
And I also experienced things where somebody might say to me, you need to stop acting like a victim. And I thought to myself, how can I stop acting like a victim when I was a victim? That never made any sense to me.
Right.
And to this day, that is never something that you should ever say to anyone.
Yeah.
You know, there's a whole lot of that. But it also, going through that time, I divorced my husband. I started drinking alcohol because once I was single, I met up with single friends, and that's what they did. They went to the bars.
Right.
So I experienced for the first time in my life something that I could put in my body that would make me numb.
Mm.
And I did that for about 4 or 5 years, and lived through it. I don't know how, but I did. And I think it's very common for survivors to either, abuse drugs or abuse alcohol, just anything to try to get you to get away from what has happened to you.
Do you found that there was anybody in your life that was sort of that would not necessarily say this exactly, but that would say something similar to, well, kind of like, of course, like you're going to drink because you went through, was there anybody that was sort of enabling you in that way, or was everybody concerned?
No, they were concerned about me. And, I just, if you were concerned about me, then I would remove you from my life.
Right.
Because I knew what was best for me, even though I really didn't. So that was it's a very dark time for me in my life. I actually told all of my children, apologize to them, for that behavior. And then again, I'm going to apologize, and then I don't want to bring it up again, because I can't just keep apologizing for something, that I did. And I think a lot of people beat themselves up, where if they could just say, hey, I'm going to say this, because I truly, genuinely am sorry. I'm sorry that part of my life led me down that road. So now it's better, of course, my relationship with them. And the more I've opened up about it, the more, that they have opened up as well back to me. So.
Right. I think that's such a, a wonderful thing to share, because I think a lot of times we say we're sorry, but then we feel like we have to keep making it up to people, and we don't have enough love for ourselves to say, okay, I said I'm sorry, and that is enough.
Right.
We feel like we have to keep doing something or saying something else, right?
Right.
Yeah. So how did you start to when did you start to really turn things around and say, okay, I've got to pull myself into a different place? Tell us what that looked like for you.
Okay. I actually, I stopped drinking cold turkey myself. I had a friend that, was almost OD'd on alcohol. And so I was there at the emergency room, for that whole week. Unfortunately, they did not experience it because they were in a coma, and then they just couldn't remember anything.
Right.
But I can remember it, and I thought, wow, that, big wake up call for me. So I did stop drinking, and after that, one of my sons said to me, Mom, I've gone through this program. It's life-changing. I would love for you to go and just see what it's like. And I'm thinking to myself, it's probably something to do with AA or something like that had to do with my drinking. But I told him I'd go ahead and go. And so I did, because if you would have asked me before that, how's your life? I would tell you, oh, my life is great. I've come through this. I'm sitting over here. I'm not drinking. Life is great. Everything is good. And so I go into this room, and it was pretty much a hands-on where, the first thing that they had us do was to stand up, just find someone and talk to them, tell them your name and what you do, and do it in a different language, like Daffy Duck or Abraham Lincoln, or, something like that. And so I'm like, I don't want to do this. And when I got up, the person I was talking to, well, I wasn't talking, but they were talking. I just started crying.
Wow.
And I couldn't stop crying. And I couldn't speak. I kept thinking, this is the simplest thing, to just stand up. And then I thought, wow, I have secluded and isolated myself and called it a life. And so I wanted to leave. I was just like, let's go. And he kept saying, no, please, Mom, please stay, And so we did. And then when we got outside, I was like, no, I am not going through this program. I'm never doing this again. This was like, they made me talk, and I had to talk to strangers.
Right.
And he just looked at me dead in the eye and he said, Mom, do you always want to live this way? And I said, no. Now, I've said no to that question before. And this time I said no, and I'm not going to. And what do I have to do to get myself past this?
Right.
And so I did go through this program, and it was quite helpful. The biggest thing it did for me was, first of all, I couldn't hear the word rape. I would never say the word rape. And so they knew that about me. So they would use it as we were going through the program. They would bring it up from time to time, just to watch me act like I just got shot. It was just like, right. Oh, no, that word, and it's just a word. I get that, And so they also had one of the workshops, and it was a long, you actually felt like you were sitting there on the dock. You had a boat. The water was, it was just beautiful. And you take whatever it is inside of you and you put it on that boat and you let it sail away. And I put my ex-husband on that boat and he sailed away. And my life changed after that.
Yeah.
I was totally different, because then I started realizing that maybe I wasn't so angry at him, but I was angry because of the assault,
right.
Because of the violence against me. And so I started then realizing that I needed to do something with my anger and work through that. There were tools that I had been given over the years, but nothing prepared me for that. Nothing did. It's because it's just like an alcoholic. Until you say, I'm done drinking, nobody's going to make that happen for you.
Right.
So as a survivor, once you say, I'm not going to live in fear, I'm not going to let this take me down the road that I don't want to go down anymore. I'm tired. I'm tired of it all. But I felt like I would have to work so much harder and be, so much more involved in therapy and this and that, to get through it. And I didn't. I just simply needed to come to the realization myself that I was angry. I was angry at what had happened to me. And now here we are all these years later, and I don't have any conclusion or any, I don't have justice. In fact, right now, for the last 2 years, I've been trying to get the department here to find my rape kit, to test it for DNA, because I keep reading about women that 20 years ago, 30 years ago,
Right.
they're now testing their DNA. But unfortunately for our department, they did not handle things the way they do now. Therefore, it's obviously gone.
How do you process that? Like, how does that part make you feel? I mean, I know my husband and I will often watch a lot of the crime shows on Netflix, and you'll see people that have been in jail for years and were innocent, and you'll see people who want to go back because the technology's finally caught up, but their stuff wasn't handled properly. Like, how do you process that? What kind of emotions come up for you?
At first I was very angry and felt like they something that was so intimate for me, they didn't treat it like I would have treated it. And then I was mad because I thought, well, they'll never be able to test it now. And because it took them a long time to even find that a crime had been committed against me, I felt like, oh gosh, it's almost like they just they wiped the whole thing out. Like it didn't ever happen. If I didn't have a police report, or if I didn't have anything like that, then it's like it never happened to me. And I got angry. You go through all the grief, I think, every time you experience something, especially if you've been violated by someone else, you do the anger and, all the way down to the acceptance. So, yeah, that's exactly how I work through it.
Yeah. So tell us now the difference of when you first went through everything to how do you get through life today, every day? What is your day look like? How do you do it every day to keep going?
Well, I think for me, I kind of split myself off into two people. The one that it happened to and the one that gets through the day. And I try to address each one separately because I need to get through the day.
Right.
And I need to have a happy life. But yet, part of me cannot ever forget this over here because of things like things that people don't think about. And here's some examples. I had to have a clear shower curtain for many years because I couldn't close my eyes in the shower. I couldn't. When you are invaded in your home, the place that you feel the most safe, and someone takes that away from you, then you don't feel safe anywhere. So trying to get through the day, not having the feeling that, I belonged anywhere, you have to separate that from, hey, I'm doing great and, I'm going to make it through it. I also, for 32 years, I slept with a nightlight. And a year ago, January, I decided that 2019, I was going to stop sleeping with a nightlight. And I did it. And I've been successful and I haven't gone back. So what you do is you take those little pieces of what you can do. And even if they're just so tiny that people think, that's no big deal. It's a big deal to somebody like me. It's huge.
Yeah.
So
I think
that's kind of how.
Go ahead.
Good. I think that's how a lot of people, once they can learn to do that, then, it just helps with each and every step along the way then.
I love that idea of celebrating small victories, even if they seem like they're not a big deal to other people, that it's something that you can celebrate and little steps that you take along the way. I think that's a huge takeaway for our listeners today because it's something that I talk about frequently as well. We keep track of the big milestones. Oh, I purchased a house. I had a baby. I got a brand new job. But what about all of the things that led up to those big things along the way and celebrating those? Is there any big tools or anything that you use today as far as mindset or things that help you get through the day?
Yes, I have used a lot of essential oils. I use Calming Blend. I use Breathe. Because a lot of times that's all you need is just that fragrance.
Yes.
To get your mind to just calm down. So I do that. I also I'm meditating. And again, I had to go to meditation maybe 8 times before I could actually close my eyes while I was in there to meditate. because I could go to church and you could say, close your eyes and pray. And I'm not going to do it because
Right.
I need to be alert, and things like that. So, so meditation helps me to control my breathing because I do have PTSD and I do have panic attacks, which are becoming rarer and rarer, which is so good,
Yes.
But I think it's because I then can change my mind to say, it really is okay. It's trust. It's all about trust.
Right.
And a lot of people talk about trusting others, but you really need to trust yourself. And that's one thing that I think I lost because it was hard to trust myself because it was hard for me to know, how am I going to react this time?
Right.
Am I going to just be smiling and everything's okay? Am I going to burst into tears and everybody's going to be like, what's wrong with her? You don't know. And so you have to build up trust within yourself, just like you do with everyone else.
Right.
So those are just a lot of good things that I use. And plus I'm always reading about how your brain, and why, because, if you can actually medically understand what happens to you during these times, then you stop blaming yourself for, not doing this or doing that like that or things like that. So that's been quite helpful for me as well.
I love it. All of those things are so good. One of the questions that I love to ask on the show, and it's so appropriate for this conversation. So you could have two different people that go through a very similar situation, and you'll have one person that perseveres and they push through after it's done and they're living their best life, and you have other people that spiral down and they can't ever pick themselves back up. What do you think makes you someone that keeps pushing forward? What do you feel like is inside of you or even externally that helps you to be the person that not just survives but thrives beyond what happened to you?
I think it's the want. I want it so bad. I want it more than anything. Because I honestly used to wonder about these people who could within the day, it's like the next day they're like, well, I'm over it and everything's, I thought those people have to be in denial because there's no way that you could go through that and just be okay.
Right.
Well, then I realized that, we all do handle things quite differently. Just like for me, had I been single and didn't have children and wasn't pregnant, my experience, even though it would have been the same experience, but then afterwards, my experience would have been completely different because I only had myself to worry, and things like that. So I also think that has to do with how people do handle it. Because you do tell yourself a lot of things and you shouldn't listen to everything that you do say to yourself. So if you can just maybe get to that point where we all kind of talk to ourselves. So if you're going to talk to yourself, then you have to trust whatever it is that you're saying to yourself that's going to be able to help you to get through this.
Right.
And, we aren't all strong, some people are just weaker when it comes to emotions, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
How you cannot ever tell someone that this is how they need to go through this.
Right.
But you can help them to be able to look at you and say, look, I did this, I am brave. I can use my voice, and how did I get there? Doing things like I'm doing today, where I'm actually talking about it. Right. If I could say anything, I would tell people, talk. Because a lot of people I've met girls that their parents don't believe them, and they do not have any kind of support system. And what happens to those girls? Well, kind of what you're talking about.
Right.
Maybe they're one that, they're just not ever going to get strong enough to get on the other side of it because you just don't have people that believe you.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So tell us, Sally, how you are using this situation and all these years of experience and growth in between to help other people today.
Well, I became a sexual assault advocate in 2013, and I did that for myself. I actually worked for a company that had nothing to do with this. And that's what allowed me to live my life and pay my bills. But then I started talking to people, and I started understanding that they needed somebody that they could talk to as well, that they could hear those things like it does get better, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It will get better. Like if I sat here and said, well, for 32 years I slept with a nightlight because I couldn't stop it, you, as young as you are, you're going to think, wow, 32 years from now, you know, I'm still going to be doing the same thing I'm doing because that's what she did. Well, that's just ridiculous, you
Right,
know.
right.
I don't know why these things hold on like that, but they do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if people could just understand and absolutely have their own advocate or best friend or, you know, whomever, every time I talk about it, oh, I feel better.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's a myth to me because I used to think if I didn't talk about it,
Right.
I'd feel better.
Right.
I didn't, you know. So I would encourage everyone to, you know, I mean, anybody can contact me. I will talk to you about it. You know, it's just, I just think you have to have those people in your life that keep telling you the truth and you believe them, you know. So a big support system is so critical.
I love that. And I love that you know, not everybody goes through something and uses that experience then to help other people, but I love that you're doing that because, you know, we need more people. I think especially in situations like this, we need someone that's going to believe us. We need someone that, because it's such a
Absolutely.
unique experience what you went through, that we need someone that knows what that's like to go through that and to not feel alone. And so I just am so appreciative of the work that you're doing in the world because we need more of that. I've been so blown away as I've done so many interviews over the last couple of weeks at just how everybody's using their experience to make the world a better place. And I'm so thankful for you, Sally, and the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You know, and I think having granddaughters too has really pushed me out into, you know, I mean, I always wanted to change, you know, the stigma attached to rape and what people say and how they say it. And, you know, those kind of things always bother me. But then when I got granddaughters, you know, I just thought this world has got to be better when I leave than it is now. So how else are you going to get that done? You got to do it yourself, you
That's
know?
right.
So
That's right.
I'm doing it.
Yes, you are. You're doing it for sure. Sally, thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing your story and how you've made it through this far. And I think you've given our audience so many amazing takeaways. And also for those people that have never been through it themselves, but might know someone who's been through it, I think that what you've shared today can be so helpful for them to be the support system that they need. So thank you so much, Sally, for talking with me today.
You're welcome.
All
You are
right.
welcome.
Thank you. So everybody that wants to contact Sally Lushin, I got it right that time, and wants to wants to connect with her, be sure to check out the links in the show notes, and we'll be back in just a few minutes with more of The Breakthrough Show.
We hope you've been enjoying The Breakthrough Show. If you're someone who is an inspirational entertainer or has an incredible story of breakthrough, we want to hear from you and maybe even have you on the show. Be sure to visit the links in our show notes to send us an email or connect with us on social media. We hope to see you on a future episode of the show. And now back to The Breakthrough.
We're back back with our inspirational entertainer today, who has an amazing song for us on the heels of today's amazing guest, Sally Lushin, and her story. From her 2018 album, My Story, My Song, here's Abby Miracle again with Made for Something.
I just want answers to a selfish prayer. Sometimes it's hard to believe that you're there. And I still try to remind myself what I already know. Maybe the more that I sing, it'll make my faith grow. You made me for something. Nothing is made for nothing. Every scar, every cry, every morning rise, I'm made well, I'm made new in your eyes. I find myself missing the conversation again. And I'm going over unanswered questions instead. As my friends talk beside me, I remember that you made them by hand. And just like them, for me, you have a plan. You made me for something. Nothing is made for nothing. Every scar, every cry, every morning rise, I'm made well, I'm made new in your eyes. But my faith is almost invisible. My trust falls short of his promises. When I feel like I'm nowhere near moving mountains, I can't help but think Jesus didn't die for this. But you made me for something. Nothing is made for nothing. Every scar, every cry, every morning rise, I'm made well, I'm made new in your eyes.
Beautiful. I had to get my tissues there at the get my tissues. That was such a beautiful song, and I think so many of us have had moments where we feel like, what's the point? Like, we're trying so hard and we're doing, what is our purpose? What is the point of it? And that one line, nothing is made from nothing. It's so emotional. It's so emotional. What does that song mean for you?
So when I was kind of preparing the album, My Story, My Song, I had a plan to make them all faith-based songs, and a lot of them are very doubtful songs, rather. And I didn't intend for that when I was going in, because I made a plan for this album maybe a year or two before I started writing for it completely. I had a couple songs written and I was like, I'm going to write more songs to go with these. And I started really going through this point in my life where I was having a lot of trouble mentally and physically. And I was kind of like, you know, when you have those moments where you're like, why is God letting me go through this, you know? And it's like, you feel like there's always a reason, but you'd think that you'd get the reason shown to you, and sometimes you never do. And so I was kind of having a little crisis there. So one week I went to my church, and there was kind of like this, they were having a service when they somebody said one of the things, like, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was one of the lines from this song, but it was something along the lines of God doesn't make something for no reason. And I was like, and I have this bad habit when I'm in church to like flip to the back of my notes and then write lyrics, and then I've missed like a minute and a half of what I was supposed to be listening to, and I'm like, oh man. But I kind of let that happen, because it's kind of like a brain dump. If I don't write it down, I'm gonna miss more than like a minute and a half of what I'm supposed to be doing.
I believe that's for a reason, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Like we all may have done things in church that we are not proud of, but but I think that in your case, like, it's such a, you are literally helping and healing and inspiring people through your music. And so just you being aware of that, like taking that stuff out, and then it becomes this and something beautiful. It's a beautiful awareness.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it got to the point that I had a little mini notebook in my Bible bag specifically for lyric ideas.
Smart. Not write it in the Bible, but
right. Well, I have a notebook where I like take notes, but it got to the point that I couldn't find where I was putting them, so I was like, I'm just losing these ideas. But yeah, and my pastor is a strong believer in letting people doodle in church, as he says, because he believes that it'll help you concentrate, which honestly, taking notes and doodling and writing down any lyric ideas I have does help me concentrate. But yeah, a lot of the songs off of that album came from that little notebook. I would just kind of have this, I don't know if it was just kind of like God was giving me these thoughts that I was getting, or if it was like something in the message kind of like triggered in my brain, but I would always have these little thoughts in my head that I would wrestle with, and I would start writing them down, and they would turn into song lyrics. And the track on my album, It Is Well, kind of came from, most of the song is a little page from that notebook where I was writing down all of these things that I was like, my mattress is old and my tires are worn out on my car, and I have to drive an hour on the interstate to work, but you know what? It's fine, because I have a job and a car and a mattress to start with.
That's right.
But Made for Something really is one of those more peaceful songs where I was like, this is what I'm frustrated with, but I'm kind of just going to sit in it. And even though I don't feel like I'm getting answers, nothing is made for nothing. And
absolutely,
you can really see the struggle in that bridge. I was really proud of that bridge to first start with, where it says, when I feel like I'm making no progress and I have no purpose, I feel like, what did Jesus die for anyway? And it really comes back around, and I feel like it's a good song for me to listen to when I feel like I'm struggling. Because I mean, what's better than to look back on your own words when you feel like things are going wrong? So I'm glad that I recorded it, and I'm glad I released it for other people to enjoy as well.
I'm very glad too. I listened to the entire My Story, My Song album one evening as I was preparing for you to be on the show, and you know, we've had a lot of conversation on this show throughout the last several seasons, and again this season, about faith and about spirituality, and how that's different for everybody, and we all have different beliefs. And what I loved about sitting and listening to, I know that you said that album is faith-based for you, but you were really, with every song, reaching across the aisle and with the lyrics and with the music, shaking the hand of everybody, no matter what they believe in. That's how I felt listening to that these are like that song. I just sat there and I sobbed. I controlled myself today. I controlled myself today, but I sobbed the first time I heard it, because it's so beautiful. And I think that's the magic of inspirational entertainment, is being able to reach everyone, no matter where they're at and what their beliefs are, and being a positive influence on their life. So thank you for being that for everybody.
Oh yeah, of course. I'm glad that you feel like it can reach everybody, because that's truly my intention. Even if somebody isn't already a Christian or anything else that's similar to what I believe, I do want everyone to believe that they're loved and have a purpose, if it's not through that album or something else that I write.
Absolutely. I love that so much. Thank you so much for being here today, Abby, and for being our first entertainer of the season. I'm so excited to have, we've got Aaron Hill coming up later in the season, who's a fantastic pianist, and I'm just so excited to see where this goes, and to not just inspire through words, but to something that I'm passionate about too, which is music. So thank you so much, Abby, for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, you guys can find out more about Abby Miracle and the links to all of her songs and her bio and all of that fun stuff in our show notes. So be sure that you click on those and check that out. We'll be back in just a minute for more of The Breakthrough Show.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, our episode 5 of season 4 is now checked off our list, and I want to thank our first inspirational entertainer of the season, Abby Miracle. Thank you so much for the beautiful music, and of course our inspiring special guest, Sally Lushin. Up next week on the show, we'll be joined by past guest and panelist and former Zen monk Alan Knight to dive into his breakthrough moments and the importance of soulmate relationships as well. Thank you so much for watching or listening today, and until next time, please take a moment to rate, subscribe, comment, share, and review where available, and ask yourself, are you ready for a breakthrough in your life? We'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Breakthrough. Please visit our website at www.thebreakthroughshow.com. And be sure to join our After the Breakthrough community powered by Patreon. We look forward to seeing you next week. Same time, same place for another inspiring episode.